What's going on, guys? Proto here. Today we're going over PGP, which is pretty good encryption. That's not only a little joke, that is also the name and what PGP stands for. You might be seeing this weird guy on the screen. That's me now. That's what you get to see. You can thank one of my followers for this idea. So let's get into PGP.
Because the road to hell is paved with good intentions.
Alrighty, so one thing that I wanted to go over for this is how important getting this set up properly is going to be. And then there are some changes that were made in this PowerPoint because I made it back in 2024 sometime and never got around to the video. So let's get into this. So pretty good privacy, pretty handsome awkward. If you know the band that sang that song, go ahead and drop it down in the comments. Oh, I forgot I can't press spacebar. Alright, so just like every other video, we're going to go over a quick introduction, what it is, tools, why you should use it, and then the conclusion. And then we're also going to be going over how to install it on Windows and Linux. I won't be going over how to install it on iPhone or Android. I'll leave some information on that in the tools portion of the slide. So, introduction. What is PGP? Well, it stands for pretty good privacy, and it is an encryption tool. It is used for text and file transfers, among other things, but mainly those text and file transfers. You get two sets of keys when you do this. You create a private key, and when you create that private key, it also creates a public key. But when you have somebody else that makes a private key, their public key is made. You then encrypt the message for their private key, for the public key, and then amongst whoever else you're going to send it to, their public keys as well, and then they can open it so long as they have yours. It's a whole key exchange, kit and caboodle, a lot of things going on in the background. There are varying security levels. So when you create the password for your PGP key, that is one level of security. You have the other levels, which are going to be how you're sending it, and then also who you're sending it to. So some of that going on later in the PowerPoint. And then again, it's used on Windows, Linux, Mac, iOS, and Android. You can use it on every platform. We'll get over into that again a little bit later in this. So, what is it? It's a tool or protocol used to encrypt a message or file. And I guess I kind of misspoke in the beginning when I say it's for transfer. You can encrypt a file and then transfer that file. There are other ways to transfer a file that I'll go over in another video. One of them is called Onion Share, and that one's a little bit more secure. But you also would like to use PGP to send the message across, and again, get that to another video. It can be used with a variety of operating systems, like I said. There are paid and free versions for both Android and iOS. One big thing is iOS has a lot less options in general, and a couple of them were actually taken off of the Apple Store recently. So that is why I'm not really going to be going over iOS. It is super easy to use. If you lose your passkey for your essentially to either send or retrieve a message, you're SOL. You're not getting it back. That's kind of the end game with this, is if you don't have the passkey to open the message alongside the actual key, you're not going to get into it. So what are the tools that we have? Well, for Windows, because let's be honest, most of us use a Windows machine. Some of us weirdos do like to use Linux, and some of those crazy people use Arch. But for Windows, you have GPG for Win, which is the main thing that you'll be installing, and then Cleopatra is going to be the tool used to actually do the GUI interface. For Linux, you have GPG. I don't really use a GUI option for Linux. Everything that I do on Linux is through the command line because it's extremely simple. For Mac, you have GPG Suite and GPG Tools. iOS, stick with Android for now. I did have a couple listed on there, and there are a couple that I'm working and trying out right now. I'm just having too many issues with it. It's become easier to get the file from whatever way I'm receiving it, SSH into my server, and then run everything from there. And then I can still obviously view it on my phone and do what I need to. Android, K9 Mail is a big one. Tech Prepper uses it and talks about it. There's also Open Keychain. I don't use Android very often. I use it for some of the radio stuff, but my day-to-day is always going to be iOS. Can't say always, but it's iOS. And I kind of just have to stick with dealing with that. Now, this is one of the slides that changed pretty heavily. Why are we using it? The slide before kind of talked about privacy and, wanted to have some secure communications and had a bit more of a, I'll call it a fantasy, or a possible, future use when things aren't going as well as they could be, or, there's some overreach going on. Well, now it's kind of changed to where it's the tech companies that are kind of pushing that overreach. AI is something that is now ingrained into our devices, ingrained into our lives, and I really don't know anybody that doesn't use AI in general. I know a couple people, but in general, the most of us are using AI pretty heavily. One thing that we're not able to control is when AI is using us. So, two things happened recently that really pushed me to push this video out first. So Google and Apple both came out with, and not necessarily came out with, but introduced their versions of AI that is being integrated into their platforms. So there's Google Gemini. It is integrated into messages. It analyzes the conversations in real time. It does collect your data. And if you are even using something that is end-to-end encrypted, you're using Signal, you're using Wire, you're using whatever it may be, right? Gemini is seeing this before encryption, before you send it. For the Apple AI, under iOS 18, I didn't really see a full name of what they're calling it. I could have just missed it. But it is scanning and summarizing your messages, your emails, everything. It's also doing this with your phones, or not your phones, your photos. And some of the issues that we're looking at is, I put possible data leaks, just because it hasn't happened yet, but you have for sure data collection, and even with that added promise of privacy from Apple saying they weren't going to collect your data. Now, about 7 to 10 to 12 hours ago, I don't know, I believe it happened on the 20th, the UK told Apple, hey, you need to give us a backdoor into these phones. And this is where we run into that weird area where, man, it's useful when it's useful, right? The big one was the San Francisco terrorist attack. They needed to get into those iPhones to see where the other primary, secondary, and tertiary devices were hidden. There is that area where, okay, Apple ended up standing their ground, and then were forced to do it, and then backdoors were created and things like that. But now you have the UK government saying, hey, you are now forced to make the backdoor because of the Apple Advanced Data Protection, which, if you don't know what that is, you can essentially encrypt the phone, and it has a key. It has a whole thing that you have to set up, supposedly encrypts the phone. Apple said, okay, cool, well, we're not going to create the backdoor. I'm using air quotes. You can't see me, but I'm using air quotes right now. We're not going to create that backdoor, but instead we're just going to take away that entire right, that entire tool to do that advanced data protection. So now we have a government doing the overreach that we are worried about, and we need a way to protect our stuff. So this is kind of jumping into a couple things that and kind of starting a series that is going to be launched soon. But this is the first part of it, is this privacy, this need to protect our conversations, protect ourselves as people, and not just commodities, and not just data sources for all these big tech companies and the government. So there's my little rant. Here's my stuff. Instagram right there, Protovoid there, Protovoid there. That is everything. For the PGP keys, once you create yours, you can essentially share it two ways. You can share it, obviously, via email, via text message, via whatever way you decide. The other way is to upload it. There's a whole database through, I believe it is MIT, that has PGP keys listed. So that is where you can go for that. But let's get into the install on Windows. Alright, so we're back. Now we are in the Windows machine. If you don't know, you can do a Windows virtual machine for free. All you get is this license expired deal. Okie dokie. So what we're going to do is we're going to install GPG for Win. Alrighty. We're just going to go up here, and you can do one of two things. If you type in Cleopatra Windows install, this is what will pop up with Copilot and all that fun stuff. This GPG for Win download is the one that you're going to want. I'm going to dip that screen down so I can see, and then you're going to download it. So we're going to go into the Downloads folder. So here is that GPG for Win right here. We're going to double click it, and yes, we want to install it. We're going to go through the entire install process. Now there is two things you can do. You can add the browser integration, which will give you the PGP services over certain places, and then the Ocular extension, which will do the PDF version of PGP. I suggest you install that. We're not going to go over it. I suggest you install it. We're just going to install as normal and wait for this to go through. Alright, so the install has finished. We're going to go next, and we're going to run it. You'll see Cleopatra jumped up on the desktop over here. One thing you can do is you can create a PGP key on K9 Mail. From there, you can export both your private and public key into Cleopatra. Now, K9 Mail is only for Android. If you want to use K9 Mail at any point, I suggest you start off with K9 Mail to create your initial key pair and then import it, because you can't take your keys and import them in a lot of these apps. You have to start off making your key pair in the app. You can import other people's keys once you've created yours, but you cannot import an already created key. Now that might change, that might have already changed. Like I said, I don't jump on Android very often, but we're just gonna pretend like we're only using Cleopatra, and we are going to generate a new key pair. You will need a public key or the private key to do anything. The private key is needed to decrypt or sign. Public key can be used by others to verify the identity and encrypt to you. This is where it gets a little bit confusing in terms of trying to verbally explain, because you're talking about keys and A to B, B to C, D to A. It can get confusing. So you're going to go to new key. You can do the name and an email address. Do want to add a expiration date to that key. and then you want to protect it with a passphrase. So it's going to go through and generate it, and then pop up a box to create that passphrase. I'm just making it super simple with test. Don't do that. This is perfect. It's going to tell you if it's insecure. Don't use an insecure passphrase for this. Use different ways to store your data, store your passcodes, however you're going to do it, but write it down, save it. That way you can use a proper secure one. We're still going to take that one. And then it's going to go through, and it was created, and here you go. Because I don't want to just give out other people's information and keys and stuff like that, I created another user called other user, and we are going to pretend that we imported their public key. I will show you how to do that. The difference on Cleopatra visually is the private keys that you own will be bolded. Anything that you don't have the private key for, it will be just a regular size text. It won't be bolded or anything specialized. So let's say we wanted to import somebody's public key. We would go to import, and you can do it one of two ways. You can import it as the file, or you can look it up on the server. So let's just do a quick and dirty message from IE user to other user. So we're going to go to the notepad, and we're going to type in a quick message. Test message. Perfect. So we're going to go to recipients, and we're going to sign as IE user. We are going to encrypt for ourselves always, and then for others, you can do one of two things. You can start typing, or you can click this little person icon. It'll show you the certificate lists, and then you can click on who you want. So we want other user. Oops. So we now have a notepad or a string of text, message, whatever you want to call it, that we can view, and we are signing, and then this person can view. Now they have to have our public key in order to send us something. We're pretending we have their public key. So we are going to sign it. Because we added a passphrase, it's going to ask for it. And now you see that it was successfully encrypted. So if we go back to the notepad, this is now the message. Oops, it just went off to the other's monitor. This is now our message. You can do this, or you can share this one of two ways. If you send this in an email, just through a normal email provider, they will see everything in plain text. Meaning they will only see this. They will see the plain text. They won't be able to understand this. What they will get in terms of actual information is the to from, so who you're sending it to, who it's being sent from, and the subject line they can read in clear text. This, nobody can read. They'll still see it, but it's a bunch of garbled mess. The other way you can do this is you can put this into a some type of file, a text file, whatever, an MD file, whatever it may be, and then you can do one of two things. Just send that file, or this is where, oops, I don't want to drag and drop. We're going to copy. We're going to go to the desktop, create a new text file just to show this. Alright, so here's our text file. This has just the PGP message that I copied and pasted from Cleopatra. We're going to save the text file, and then go into Cleopatra. We're going to sign and encrypt. This is where we can go onto our desktop, and now we are encrypting the file itself as well, again for other user, and this is just what we're going to name it. You can sign it separately, you can encrypt it with a password as well, but you have to somehow share the password. We're not going to encrypt it with a password, we're just going to make sure that as long as they have their own password, they can do their thing and open it up. So we sign and encrypt it, it's good to go, finish, go back to our desktop, and we see the GPG file. If we double click it, it'll open up in Cleopatra. Because we already have everything opened and it's just our public keys, you can do one of two things. You can save it and rename the file if you've already created it, or you can discard it. So we're going to save it, suggest a new name, rename, and it's right here, and we see this. Now, let's say that you are done in Cleopatra, you want to delete things, you want to delete the message and stuff, you just highlight and delete. Let's say you messed up, you wanted to change something, whatever it may be, you can click revert, and it will change your message back to what it was. You then go through that sign process again. Now, let's say that we, just close that. Let's say this is what we have. We went to our notepad, we pasted this message in, now we are going to decrypt it. It will normally ask you for your password, and then we'll show you the message that you received. That's how simple it is on Cleopatra. The other thing too is if you find out somebody's information was compromised, let's say they tried doing something, somebody got their computer stolen, whatever it may be, and you know that that PGP key should not be utilized anymore, you can revoke the certification. I like Cleopatra just because it's so much simpler because of the GUI and being able to export things. However, you can also do this on Linux, and that's what we're going to go do now. Alright, so now we are in my OSINT machine. I already have GPG or PGP installed on this. To do it, you would do sudo apt install GPG. It's going to go through, check everything, and then say it's already installed. To run it, you're going to type in gpg-h, and that's going to come up with the just normal help file. The few things that we're going to want to focus on are, move this down a bit, we want to make sure that we can encrypt something, that we know how to list the keys, we know how to decrypt things, and then import and export keys. And then there are some examples down here. So we're going to pretend, just like with the other one, that we haven't made a key. And for that, we're going to do the GPG, and then go down to generate a full key set is what we're going to want to do. And I just there we go. So full generate key. So we are going to just go through this default. 3072 is the default. We're just going to keep going. And we are going to do 2 years. Sure. My real name. Do OSINT. Comment. You don't have to add a comment, but just kind of adding these things so you can see what it is. We're not going to change anything. Enter a passcode. Same thing as before. It's going to say, hey, it's a weak code, you should do it. We're going to use this one anyway. Now it's going to go through and generate everything. And again, with this one, we don't have that GUI, so we're going to be looking at all of this stuff here. We have the public key, and when it expires, and the name. So if we do gpg-lowercase k, it's now going to list, actually gonna clear the screen. The keys and who it is for. Now, we created the key, so it's that. But let's look at my desktop really quick. So I took the public key, I exported the public key from Cleopatra, from the one that we made on the Windows machine, brought it over here so we could look at importing a key. So if we look at that GPG help list again, and if you see there are some shortcuts here, but if we go through and we see the import right here, as long as you are in the area where that is, it'll be easy, and you can do this anywhere in the operating system. So we see the name there. We're going to do -- import, and then just that file, because we're already in the folder / place where that file is. We're good to just do this, press enter, import it, and then we're going to run through that GPG command again, GPG -k, and now we have the OSINT, which is ours, and then the unknown test email, i.e. user. We're about to sign and encrypt a message. Here is a big difference, and again, one reason why I like the Cleopatra version. There is no just straight notepad. What you can do is you can generate the armor file, the ASCII armored output, which is what we saw on Cleopatra, or you can just generate a straight GPG file. I like the armor approach because we don't have the private key for the test at my email. What we're going to do is just encrypt it for ourselves, but it'll be the same process to decrypt it if you've just been sent something. So there's a couple different things that we can do here. One thing is we're going to need to know the emails, so GPG-k is going to give us that information. Now, let us, do I have anything on the desktop here? Nope, just that. Alright, so we're going to make a file. Alright, so there's our message. We're going to sign and encrypt it, and then we're going to add the file. So we have the GPG command, which starts this whole process. The SE is for the sign and encrypt. R is who it is going to be for, and then the test.txt is that file that we have encrypted. It's going to go through. If we look at the desktop here, we are going to see the .gpg file. Now, if I were to cat, which is just the command to read that file, it's going to show a bunch of weird characters and be completely unreadable. For this, easiest thing to do if you're sent or you send a GPG file, you're going to do -d for decrypt, just one D, this, and then test.txt.gpg, and that will decrypt it. Now, I've already gone through and decrypted something on here just to make sure this all worked, but we see here, this is that message. This is what we saw when we did the cat, and this is the actual message that we saw. Now, I like having the ASC file because you can then copy and paste it if you want. You can do a whole bunch of different things with it. So we're just going to do a couple different things. So we're going to do the same thing, sign and encrypt for OSINT. Again, you're not going to sign this. You can't sign it for yourself. And you can add another user too. Oops. What was that one? Test. Just do 2 R's, or 2 tick R's to do it for both. And then we're going to also do, and I believe we can do it over on this side. We're going to add the ASCII and the verbose function to it. So it's going to ask about the certificates. We have not certified that we really know these keys, know these people. It's just saying, do you really want to do this? We do, so we're going to. The verbose just shows you what it's doing, making sure that it actually goes through. So now what we have is we have the .asc file right here. So if we cat that, we get the standard, I know I can't drag and drop, we get that standard PGP message. And it's the same thing. Let's see, what was it? Here is this. And this was a good signature with that for the unencryption or the decryption. If we were to try and do, I'll just show you. So, yeah, that's fine. So we are encrypting a file for that test@myemail.com. So that the other user, right? We didn't write ourselves into it. So if we try and decrypt this file, we don't have the secret key for it. Because that is not our account, essentially, we cannot get into it. And then again, same thing. We get that random string. So hopefully this wasn't too long of a video. Hopefully the little change that I made with the character and some of the things that I'm doing on this makes this a little bit more interesting. Let me know what you think. Let me know down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. Let me know if you use PGP, and if you'd like to use PGP to communicate with me, go to Buy Me a Coffee and you will see that it is on there. Have a great rest of the week, weekend, weekday, whatever time it is, and I'll see you next time.
Because the road to hell is paved with good intentions.